What's going on, everybody? Today we're here to talk about all things rope climbs. The Tactical Games has briefly hinted, or has actually said, they're going to bring them back. They were here back in the past. I was not here for that, but I'm here now, and so I'm here to talk about all things rope climbs. We're going to be talking about a couple key different things. Number one, how to climb a rope. We're going to be talking about two different ways to climb a rope. That'll be the J-hook and the S-wrap, or the Spanish wrap. And then we'll be talking about some scaling options for those of you that don't have rope climbs just yet. Let's say I put them in the programming and you don't have them yet. What is some good ways to scale it? And how do you scale it even if you don't even have a rope at all? So what's some good movements to kind of sub for it? So let's get started on this and get rolling. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is two different key ways to climb a rope. I'm actually going to do the Spanish wrap, or the S-wrap. I'm going to call it S-wrap from here on. The S-wrap first. It is usually the technique I teach most people who are newer to climbing a rope, especially if they're not going very high, doing very many repetitions. And then from there, I kind of teach the J-hook, but I kind of save the J-hook because the J-hook depends on a little bit more core stability and upper body strength than the Spanish wrap does, in my opinion. So, okay, so S-wrap, I'm going to have to you have to stare really, really far here. But so how the S-wrap is going to work, I personally like to grab a box. If you're learning how to climb a rope for the first time, it's the most key thing for you is your connection to the rope. I know it sounds stupid when I'm saying that, but like your connection to the rope is a key thing, right? Getting it right every time and making it subconscious when you do it. That way when you climb a rope, when you're going up or going down, you don't have to think about it, you're just doing it correctly. So how I normally teach people is I will get them a box. This is a 30-inch box. Put it next to a rope, a chair, whatever you need, and just practicing getting your feet around the rope and what it feels like. That way when you're doing it in a workout or you're doing it in a competition, you're not having to think about it because you already know this is how it should feel every time. And then if it doesn't feel right, you know how to fix it. So what I normally, like I mentioned, recommend, grab yourself a box. I'm going to scoot it a little bit closer. And then you can kind of get through and practice, hey, what does a Spanish wrap look like? Getting used to that feeling on your feet over and over and over again. And then from here, usually I recommend, hey, stand on the rope, pull yourself up, drop back to the ground, and then sit back on the box and repeat it. So that's what I'm going to normally recommend for you guys that are learning how to climb rope for the first time. That's just my recommendations. Now let's actually get into the nitty-gritty part of what is the Spanish wrap. Sorry, this thing's going to get in the way, but I need decent audio. So for a Spanish wrap, the difference between a Spanish wrap and a J-hook is more connection points between your body and the rope for a Spanish wrap. That can be a good and a bad thing. It can be a good thing if you've got a lot of gear on, if you're heavy, if you don't feel comfortable going up the rope, because there's less opportunity for you to come off the rope because you have more friction points between you and the rope itself. So how that looks is I want you to stand next to the rope, right? Put your leg out. Usually for me, it's going to be my dominant leg that I'm going to use to connect to the rope is always going to be my right foot because I'm right-handed. Could be different for you, right? So I'm going to put my right leg up, okay? Go like this for you, okay? I'm going to wrap my leg around the rope with the rope now ending on top of my foot, right? A Spanish wrap. From the side, it kind of looks like an S, but essentially it's wrapping around my leg. It's wrapping around my leg, hence the Spanish wrap part. I said wrapping around my leg twice. That sounds kind of weird. Anyways, so from here, your other foot, your clamp foot, is just going to step on top of the rope, whereby pinning the rope between your 2 feet, right? Between this foot and that foot. So I'm going to sit in the box. I'm going to step. I'm going to pin it right there on my foot, the rope on my foot, and this is the Spanish wrap. So from this perspective, if you had a box, right, I would sit on the box. Here's my rope. Put my leg up, wrap my foot around without getting my audio in there, okay? This makes it really difficult. Okay, step on the rope, and if I'm sitting on the box, I would put my hands up, and I would pull myself up, okay? And then I would slide down, and I would do it again. And that's how I recommend learning the Spanish wrap over and over and over again, is doing repetitions like that. And then when you feel comfortable, right, and you start going up the rope. So how do you go up the rope? Well, I don't have enough video kind of space in this barn to show you that because I want to film it horizontally. But essentially, if you're trying to go up the rope, well, now you need to loosen your Spanish wrap because I can't obviously climb a rope if I'm clamped onto the rope. So how do I loosen it? Right, well, I'm going to pull my body up. I'm going to loosen my knot and then come up the rope a little bit, and then again catch the rope on my foot, pinning it with my other foot against it. So that's the Spanish wrap. It is not the most recommended way of climbing a rope for me personally. I think it's more difficult to do at speed. I think it's a little bit more dangerous because you can, if you come down the rope in a wrong way, it could twist your ankle, it could twist your foot. There's a lot of, you can get a really solid rope burn from it. I usually only recommend the Spanish wrap if you're trying to learn and you don't have the upper body strength to hold yourself onto the rope. So bear that in mind as you learn. Spanish wrap, it's okay, but not my most favorite way of climbing a rope. The J-hook, what we're talking now, is my preferred way of climbing rope and is most people's preferred way of climbing rope. It is faster. It requires a little bit more, I think, upper body strength and a little bit more like connection between you don't have as many connection points between you and the rope, so you have to depend on your legs and having a good clamp on the rope to protect yourself, or you're just gonna slide down, right? So, okay, how does the J-hook work? So, sorry, I have to think about it because I just taught the Spanish wrap. So, here's my recommendations, right? This is how I teach it. Bear with me. I've taught this a lot, and this is my preferred way of teaching it. Throw that over my shoulder. Okay, imagine you're a flamingo. I know. It's exciting. Imagine you're a flamingo, right? Flamingos stand like this, I think, but I'm going to have you stand like this, okay? So I'm going to have you stand next to the rope. Put your dominant leg up. For me, it's my right foot, right? I'm going to put my dominant foot up. The rope is going to always start on the inside of your leg. My cue for a lot of people is inside out, so the rope is in the inside and then it has to go outside your foot. So I need you to start on the inside of your leg and then go on the outside of your leg. So how does it do that? Well, it's going to cross across your shin, right? So this is how it should look: inside your leg, outside your foot. From there, the S-wrap, remember this leg stood on top of that leg, right? That foot, sorry. Now it's going to be the opposite, right? So this foot is now going to go underneath. I call it kind of the swoop, right? I'm going to swoop underneath. I'm going to pin that rope down there, and I'm going to step on the rope using this foot. So it's going to look like this. It's inside my leg, outside my foot. This leg comes outside, and I step on that rope with my non-dominant foot. And this is the clamp position I currently have, right? Rope is inside my knee, outside my foot. My non-dominant leg swoops underneath. I step on that rope, on that foot with my dominant leg, and this is the clamp position. And then from here, right, I have a solid connection to the rope. Now, like mentioned, it's not as solid as an S-wrap, but this is a lot faster. If I'm coming down the rope, if you notice, right, the rope isn't wrapped around my leg like an S-wrap, right? It's not. So if I come down from an S-wrap, I could yank a knee, yank an ankle, but for a J-hook, right, it's just right there, right? If I fall off the rope or I come off the rope really, really fast and an uncontrollable speed, it's not going to hurt me. Yeah, I'm probably going to get a rope burn, but it's not going to like rip my ankle or rip my knee to some degree. So I prefer the J-hook overall. So from here, if you're sitting on a box and you're learning for the first time, what I would recommend is you sit in the box, okay? Put your knees out, say, okay, the rope starts on the inside of my knee and goes to the outside of my foot. Pretend I'm a flamingo. That's where it's going to be for here. I'm going to swoop underneath. I'm going to step on the rope, and then I'm just going to pull myself up. Okay? I feel comfortable. Now I'm going to slide down and then restart it again. I'd recommend if you're trying to learn this for the first time, get in here, do like 10 repetitions of that to get an idea of how the J-hook works. And as you become more comfortable, now you're able to start maybe climbing up the rope. So from this position, once I have a clamp in the rope and I'm stepped on the rope, now where do I go from here, right? Well, imagine I'm holding onto the rope, right? So I'm holding onto the rope like this. Where do I go from here? Well, now what I'm trying to do is get my legs as high as I possibly can, and then I have to let go of the clamp. I have to slide my legs up, kind of like, imagine like a toes to the bar perspective, right? So I'm here, sorry, I'll turn on this side. I'm here, and I have to get my legs as high as possible, clamp the rope again, and then extend and walk myself up the rope with my hands, right? So then grab another spot. And that's how you're gonna go up the rope. Obviously making sure that when I am moving my feet up, when I'm here, right, and I am moving my feet up, I have to let go of the rope and then reclamp, right? So I can't just keep the clamp. I have to let go, pull myself up, and then reclamp it again. And so the whole purpose is you need to learn to feel comfortable with the clamp. You need to feel comfortable when you're tired reclamping the rope over and over and over again, and it's subconscious. And then as you get better, now the next discussion is, okay, well, I'm not gonna start a rope climb sitting on a box, right? I'm probably gonna start a rope climb standing next to a rope and jumping into it. So now I have to feel comfortable saying, okay, well now I'm going to jump into the rope and catch my clamp when I jump into the rope. So anyways, that's the J hook. The next discussion is, okay, what about for those of you that can't get a rope climb for whatever reason, don't feel comfortable, or don't have a rope? And so that discussion is next. So the first discussion is, well, what about scalability? You know, hey Jacob, I'm still learning an S-wrap, I'm still learning a J-hook, whatever the case may be, but I just don't have the upper body ability to do that. Usually what I recommend is rope pulls. So you can do this a couple different ways. I'll show two. So rope pulls essentially are, hey, I'm here, and I'm just gonna pull myself up, right? 1, 2, 3. You're still working that pulling, upper body pulling motion that will be important when you actually get the rope climb down. So that's a rope pull. Another variation of that, I don't know if it's a different name or not, but another variation that you can do, which is a lot more difficult, is where you set your feet and you kind of walk back down to the ground and then you pull yourself back up, right? So it's more of a legless rope climb pull perspective, but it still builds that upper body pulling sensation. What I would say is start with the first version, right? So start with this, right? Start with this. And of course, the more you walk your feet out, the harder it is. And then from there, take it to the ground. Start walking yourself back to the ground, pulling yourself back up. It makes it easy if you put like a little tape line on the rope and say, hey, I'm gonna pull myself to this tape line, that's a repetition. That's another great way of scaling a rope climb. Another perspective, let's say you don't have a rope at all, right? Hey, Jake, I have no option to have rope. A really good substitute for doing a rope climb movement without a rope is, and I'm gonna assume you have a rope or something, but you don't have it attached to a ceiling. So one good way is grabbing yourself a sled. I don't have one available right now, it's over there. But grab yourself a sled and do a hand-over-hand sled pull. So you have a sled, let's say I have a rope attached to the sled somehow, whether it be a carabiner or whatever, and then I'm gonna assume this position right here, and I'm gonna pull that sled to myself. You've probably seen it in a couple different movements. It could be a rope. Another good variation is like a tow strap that you can attach a car to if you need to tow a car. So those are really good. That's a really good substitute for a rope climb if you happen to have a rope or something, but you just don't have it attached to the ceiling because maybe you have a really low ceiling or you just don't have any girders or any rafters to tie it to. So that's a really good substitute. So anyways, guys, that's a real brief, it's probably not very brief, probably like 12 minutes, right, of me talking. That's a really good walkthrough. And it's a very basic discussion point of rope climbs. Maybe I'll put together a second video of, okay, well, what do you do next? But this is kind of a very beginner concept related to, hey, I don't know how to do a rope. How do I attack it? Get yourself a box, practice over and over, you know, what is it? What's the Karate Kid thing? Wax on, wax off. Like just do the simple stuff over, the fundamentals over and over again. That way subconsciously you know, whether it be a J-hook or an S-wrap, you know without thinking, hey, I know I have a really solid connection with the rope. I can climb this rope. So anyways, guys, hopefully that helps. Let me know if you have any questions. Other than that, have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you guys later.